tour, and I hope I grab your interest here if I haven't yet. I know you guys it's a hot day and you probably want to do something else, but actually taking off that's how much I get into it. Alright, the date is August 19th, 1812, and the U.S.S. Constitution is off the coast of Nova Scotia. All of a sudden it spots an unidentified ship and we signal out friend or foe. Now these are testy times and definitely testy waters because we are at war with Britain. So we signal out friend or foe and this ship silently but boastfully replies with 3 British ensigns. Ensigns are flags. You raise 1, you're stating your business. You raise 2, you kind of a threat. You raise 3, that meant you were ready for battle. You're ready to go now. And they made that all too soon and very quickly. So they fire about 1,200 shots, 1,200 yards away. Boom! 1 full broadside at Constitution. But all shots are ineffective. So they hit our sides and they ricochet off into the water because that extremely thick hull that we talked about before. So our men are ready to go. They're ready to fight. They practice it. They're at their guns. Everybody knows what they're doing. We have many of these bilge pumps pumping water out onto the decks because they know that sparks are going to be flying, that gunpowder is going to be spilled. They don't want their ship to catch fire. We also have our carpenters taking down these false walls here to the captain's cabin to utilize the 4 guns back there. We have about 12 men on every single one of these guns and about 6 to 8 men on every single one of the guns above deck. We have small boys ranging anywhere from 8 to 16 years of age carrying these satchels right here that had the gunshot and the gunpowder in them to every single one of the guns that they were assigned. They had to go 2 decks below through a hole that was about this big. They had to come up here and restock every single one of their guns and go back down below and restock them again in 90 seconds. That's how fast these things could fire. So every person was doing what they were supposed to do. They were ready to fire back at the ship, but our captain has another idea. He shouts, "Every man stay well at his aim!" Basically saying, hold your fire. Now these men were well-trained sailors and they're obedient. So they listened to their captain and they stayed firm in their positions, ready to fire back at their enemy. They were loaded and ready to go. They still closer at the HMS Guerriere, about 500 yards closer, trying to gain the advantage. Meanwhile, the Guerriere continues to shoot at us. The shots remain, and they keep ricocheting off of our sides into the water. So we still stay protected. We sail in even closer, about 300 yards. The men start to become a little more nervous, a little more aware of the situation. But those shots, still fired at us, continue to ricochet off into the waters. About 200 yards, even closer, our captain stays silent. The men are beginning to think that maybe he's lost his marbles. They're not quite sure. They're sailing in even closer, trying to gain that advantage. And the crew knows that they need to stay quiet and they stay obedient to their captain. They sail in 50 yards. These men can't take it any longer. And the captain finally breaks his silence and says, "Now, boys, holler!" They fire 1 full broadside into the Guerriere at 50 yards. These guns are designed to penetrate 2 feet of oak at 400 yards. So imagine what they did at 50. They devastated the structural integrity of the Guerriere. Not only that, they devastated the Guerriere's morale too, which is a major role in battle. If you don't have a will to fight, there's no will for battle. So we keep firing at each other. Every ship that had a lot to prove this day. We had a very brand new navy. We had to make this victorious. Whereas the British, they were a little cocky because they hadn't won a battle or they hadn't lost a battle for a long time. So losing to an American would have been just a travesty. So everybody it was hope and iron being shot that day. Hope and iron. So it meant a lot on both sides. So this time that one of our unknown sailor notices the Guerriere shot hits our sides or ricochets off into the water. And he yells out, "Huzzah! Her sides are made of iron." And as Nicole liked it so much, he wrote it down to his deck log. He said that will remain in our deck logs forever. And from then on, we were known as Old Ironsides. Because before this point in history, the War of 1812, you see, the Americans didn't really have a whole lot of hope in it. In fact, Boston, the city of Boston, they weren't in it at all. They actually the state of Massachusetts thought about seceding from the other colonies. So you can imagine that there's a lot more at stake here than that meets the eye. So in just 35 minutes, or 25 minutes, we shoot down the fifth mast of the Guerriere, which is the rearmost mast, and it falls off into the water. And it falls to the starboard side and actually pulls the ship to that side, and which crippled their ability to maneuver, which was another key point in battle. So we had that as an upper hand. So we keep firing at each other, and the Guerriere comes up behind us and rams into our aft end. This gave each ship's Marines ample chance to board the other. So this time, Lieutenant William S. Bush climbs on the aft end of the ship and asks, "Shall I board her, sir?" But before the captain could even reply, Lieutenant William S. Bush was shot through the cheek. He was killed by a British Marine sniper. And he went down in history as the first Marine officer ever to die in the high seas in combat, which is why we have the plaque down below, and this is why our quarterdeck is named after him. Tragic though was, Constitution had to battle on and had to be victorious. And in just 35 minutes, they completely demasted the Guerriere. All masts had been shot down, and they had nothing left to do, so they surrendered. So we took aboard their sailors, took aboard their goods. We tried to salvage the ship, but we shot it up too badly. We realized that in just 3 hours it could not be salvaged. We set fire to it, and it exploded, and it sunk down to a watery grave, also known as Davy Jones' locker, which I'm sure you've heard. But a lot was at stake this day that we've already talked about, and you guys are hopefully kind of getting that feeling that there was so much to put up on both ends. This was the first time that the U.S.S. Constitution ever went up against a British ship and won. Not only that, but it was America's first victory against the British ever on the high seas. So, for the very first time in the world of 1812, we were victorious. And this gave the people hope. And it's the reason why Old Ironsides rings in everyone's ears when they hear it. They may not know exactly where it's from, but they've heard of it sometime in their life. And it's the reason why it's still around today, is because it does mean a lot to a lot of people. So let's go above deck. We'll try to leave you with a little patriotic feeling, if anything, but I'll get you out of here real quick. So go up one more deck.